Hello, I'm Brett Knowles with the Balanced Scorecard Network. I'm going to provide you with a quick overview of the history of strategy mapping and some of the interesting features and benefits it offers organizations. I've been involved in the Balanced Scorecard arena since the late 1980s, where I worked alongside Drs. Kaplan and Norton. In fact, every book they've written in the last 20 years cites my clients as best case examples, as do many of the other books on the Balanced Scorecard and performance measurement. In addition, they've awarded 4 of our clients the prestigious Hall of Fame Award for furthering the ideas and concepts around the Balanced Scorecard. So, the easiest way to explain a Balanced Scorecard is with an example, and one of the common examples that's given is one of our clients, Southwest Airlines. In Southwest Airlines has been documented about 32 times in different books, so I'm not sharing with you any top secret information, just generally accepted and available frameworks. So when we wrote the first book in the Balanced Scorecard, we described strategy as 4 perspectives. Up until that point, we only effectively had one perspective. We translated everything that organizations did into financial numbers. The dilemma is, as more and more intangible assets are used in the creation of value, financial measures don't give you a good representation of the value that's being created. Our research at Harvard indicated that not only did we need to look at the financial perspective, but we needed to understand what do our customers want and how well are we meeting those needs, what are internal processes and how well they're performing, and lastly, learning and growth. What are the organizational learning and growth objectives? Now, inside of the first book, The Balanced Scorecard, we focused on these 4 perspectives, but we began to reveal a concept called a strategy map. In a strategy map, we try to describe the cause and effect relationship between these objectives. So, for example, our overall objective is to achieve financial success. To do that, we need to make our customers happy. To make our customers happy, we need the right internal processes. And to have the right processes, we need to have the right competencies, culture, and enabling structures, what we call enablers. So these are the 4 perspectives of the Balanced Scorecard. And we should be able to draw any strategy as a cause and effect diagram across these 4 perspectives. So in the Southwest case, on the financial perspective, they felt that they could achieve success by having more customers on fewer planes. So as a strategy map, we draw it like this. Our hypothesis is if we had more passengers or fewer planes, we'd increase profitability. So how are we going to satisfy our customers? Well, there are 2 customer objectives that our surveys indicated. One is people wanted low ticket price, and second, on-time flights. So, as a hypothesis, we feel we can get more passengers by either having on-time flights or lower ticket price, or ideally, all of those objectives. The dilemma is these 3 are kind of conflicting with each other. For many airlines, in their attempts to get their flights on time, they buy more planes, which drives up their cost. In the case of Southwest, they began to pursue an operational excellence strategy. Internally, they wanted to be operationally excellent as seen by having faster ground turnaround time. If they had faster turnaround time, they could operate with fewer planes because they had more airborne capacity, which means they could lower their ticket price because they didn't have to buy as many planes, or increase profit margin. And then finally, they could stand a better chance of having their flights on time because they could flip them on the ground faster. How do you get there? Well, we needed to educate and compensate people for process redesign with a bias towards cycle time reduction to get the shorter turnaround time so we operate with fewer planes, lower ticket price, and more on-time flights to attract more passengers. So this is a strategy map. It outlines the key strategic objectives and the cause and effect relationship. Now, if this is 100% your strategy, you need to allocate that 100% across these objectives. So in Southwest's case, in this example, they probably had a high weighting of process redesign in year 1. In year 2, the weighting is going to move up to see some benefits from the training, faster turnaround time, and more on-time flights. So the weighting might look a bit like this. And then by year 5, the weighting probably moves up to some of the financial benefits. So the idea is between the strategic objectives, the cause and effect arrows, and the priorities, we can clearly describe strategy. So a strategy map does a bunch of things. One is it's a good visual framework of the cause and effect relationship amongst the various components of your organization's strategy. And it's used to integrate the 4 perspectives of the Balanced Scorecard. It provides a uniform and consistent way to describe strategy so that all stakeholders can understand what is the value proposition of your organization. It illustrates sort of the time-based dynamics of strategy. The balance scorecard is trying to balance the short-term needs of the organization with the longer-term needs, trying to get away from the quarter-end financial flows that happen around shares and commonly traded companies. And then finally, it allows us to indicate our strategic priorities. So it allows us to deliver the organization's value proposition to the targeted customers and promote productivity objectives overall to achieve the financial success. The strategy map also identifies specific capabilities of the organization's intangible assets that are required to deliver that performance. So it balances the contradictory forces in the organization. It shows the differentiated customer value proposition. It shows how value is created through the internal processes, and it shows the themes and common complementary frameworks required for success, and then of course allows that overall alignment. Now, a strategy map can cascade down the organization. So a corporate map in the Southwest case might cascade to different maps for different departments: maintenance, operations, sales, service. Or in your world, it might be different brands or different products. And so we need to understand how those objectives cascade down. So the corporate objective, fast turnaround time, for maintenance, they might need to sort out how to repair airplanes by replacing parts. Operations, maybe they need to cross-train everyone, and so forth. The idea is this becomes a service level agreement between the departments, regions, brands, and the corporate entity. So what can you do with a strategy map? You can do things like obviously attach strategic level performance indicators next to each of those objectives so we can communicate what our performance looks like to any stakeholder. This is a critical element that we call the balanced scorecard, where we see the strategic objectives, their priorities, and our overall performance levels. This allows quick alignment around the leadership team and prioritization of actions. We can also use the strategy map to clearly communicate to employees, investors, stakeholders, and even customers what this organization is about, what our value propositions are, what our priorities are, and what we're going to do to enable their success. We can also use this to understand how strategy translates to action. See, if we took those strategic objectives and listed them on the left side of a spreadsheet, and across the top we listed the core processes, we could understand how each of your core processes supports each strategic objective. And by understanding the impact and performance, we can begin to drill down on the strategy to the core processes that support success. This allows us to do things like drill into the strategic success. For example, if we took a look at fast turnaround time, we can understand that the processes that impact it are things like air operations, ground operations, logistics, and so forth. And if we wanted to find out what was causing our observed performance, we can just drill into that process linkage that we just described. This allows for a logical or systems-based drill down on strategic objectives by the leadership team. So, the history. Where did this come from? Well, the first article written on the balanced scorecard was created by Drs. Kaplan and Norton based on some work that Dr. Norton had done at Allied Signal. And in that article, it began to describe the 4 perspectives and some of the goals and objectives that might fit inside those 4 perspectives. Now, those are building blocks to the strategy map, but the first article didn't actually touch on the strategy map. Their first book, though, the balanced scorecard, described 5 different strategy maps in it. So this is one of them from Metro Bank, and it begins to characterize the cause and effect relationship, although the focus of the balanced scorecard was more on the perspectives and the timeline balancing. In September of 2000, they wrote a second Harvard Business Review article, this one on strategy mapping. And this one began to introduce some of the concepts behind strategy mapping. And basically, the detail they described is like this. Financially, we're worried about what are the drivers that push shareholder value up. So, overall shareholder value measured by things like shareholder value or ROCE is really caused by 2 things. One, we can either improve our productivity or we can grow our revenue. To improve productivity, there's two things we can do on the financial side: improve our cost structure or increase asset utilization. And those are measured by things like cost per unit and asset turnover. On the revenue growth side, we can do two things: enhance customer value or create new value from existing products and services. And they're measured by things like customer profitability or revenue from new sources. So, to achieve those financial successes, we have to make our customers happy. And customer perspective is described through things like what is our overall customer value proposition, which include dimensions like quality, price, relationships, brand, and so forth. And those can be described as, customer-based solutions, product leadership solutions like, say, Apple, or low-cost approaches. And those will impact the financial success of the organization. And those can be measured through things like market acquisition, customer retention, customer sat. Now, internally, there are basically 4 clusters of performance that we can focus on. We can be operationally excellent, we can be customer intimate, or we can be innovators. And the 4th one is regulatory compliance, sort of a social theme. And the idea is these will impact the customer perspective and the financial perspective. Furthermore, they kind of impact each other as well. So we can begin to show the cause and effect relationship between these objectives and themes. Then underpinning that is the learning and growth perspective, which is about those intangible assets: people, culture, strategic assets. And so those enable everything above it. So these are the primary components of a strategy map, and your strategy map will have one or more of these components inside of it. They took the principles of the balanced scorecard, and in their 3rd book, Strategy Maps, they provided even more refinements about the strategy map and the strategy mapping framework. So the benefits achieved. There are a number of benefits of the balanced scorecard. The highest ones cited by research are: 1, the ability to monitor performance; 2, the ability to communicate strategic direction and priorities to all stakeholders; and 3, translate strategy into action in a way that allows everyone to understand their contribution; and then finally 4, aligning the organization, making a clear cause and effect relationship between organization entities and success. To learn more about these concepts, please join us at one2manage.com.